Hello, everybody, and welcome to Between Plays Stock Market Strategies. And today, once again, actually, we have with us Dr. Luisa Moreno, CEO of Graphano Energy Corp. How are you doing today, Luisa?
I am good. I'm good, Albert. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm super excited. As the young ones would say, I'm super stoked that you're here today. But actually, because you have an exciting story, and graphite, it's the future, right? I mean, for the EV sector and for the green sector, it's one of, a super important mineral that we need. It's in everything basically. And I think in Quebec, Canada, you guys are probably, I think you're the only ones that you're adjacent to Imerys, the only producing
Correct.
graphite company, right?
Correct.
In Quebec, Canada. Is that it? It's Quebec, Canada, correct?
It is. It is. It is correct. So it is definitely in Quebec. The only North American, between U.S. and Canada, is the only mine currently any, a graphite mine,
Wow.
and we are right adjacent to them. So actually, the claims that we have today used to be owned by them. So Imerys decided a while ago that they didn't want to be in the mining sector, and so they let those claims go. And there were vendors, there were prospectors that got hold of them, and then they vended it to us.
And you guys were smart enough to pick it up. that's
Yes, we
that's
we were, especially a couple of years ago, when nobody was really paying attention. That's when it's the easiest time, let's say, to
yeah.
to get some
Well,
of these most prospective uh, projects or
well,
claims.
it seems to have paid off that you guys did go into this area off of Emirates, because when we first had you on the show last year, you had stated that there was going to be drilling that was going to be starting and all this stuff. And we know that there was, you guys, I'll let you do the updates since last year, with the drilling and your updates, the graphite, you have intersected, correct?
Right? No, absolutely.
So
It's
let's
it's
go for it.
everywhere.
Let's go for it. Oh, it's
it's
everywhere. Let's
it's
go for it.
everywhere. It's definitely there.
Okay, let's do it.
Um,
So,
right. So as you may recall, we have about so we have two properties now. So when we last spoke, we only had one. Actually, we have now four.
okay,
But
so you
the
had
ones that we are,
Laco Boulot when we first spoke.
yes,
That's the
correct,
adjacent for the Imerys, but you have standard now as well. And now you're
correct.
telling me you have more? I got to hear this.
Yes, yes, but we have not really spent much time working on India, on the other ones. But the two that we have spent time is, you're right, is Lac Oblio and Standard. So Lac Oblio is the one that is adjacent to Lac des Îles,
Lac des
which
Îles.
is the producing mine today.
Yes.
They don't have a lot of mine life left.
That's what
So
I heard.
according to Northern Graphite, that now owns, used to be Imerys, and Imerys divested, and so they basically sold it to them.
Yep.
So they announced last year they had 3 years mine life. So right now they probably have about 2 years mine life
Yes.
left. So they are very eager, as you might understand, to find more as well. And that's another conversation that we can have. But
Yes.
so we definitely did a lot of prospective work. So we have 8 zones at Lac Oblio, and we looked at zone 1 and zone 3, zone 4, and a little bit of the zone 8. We also have a historical resource. We have a pit with historical resource with about 200,000 tons contained sort of graphite.
Okay.
And we did a little bit of prospecting and drilled that area as well, just to confirm that is there, and it definitely is there. So we have drilled between last year, in last year actually,
Yeah.
we drilled the 2 programs that we did about 5,000 meters, and we, like I said, different zones. Just really, it was exploration drilling. Initially, we did prospecting. So essentially, we look for outcrops, and then we did trenching and channeling and sampling to identify where to drill.
Yes.
And then we went in and we drilled, and sure enough, it's definitely there. So we are very excited. We're working towards defining a resource, but we will have to likely drill a little bit more.
So basically, that's what we're on. So no, the good news is that we were basically hitting things that we want to hit, and
Yes,
we're just looking to see how big we can get it now. And then you have standard, and you have the other two, which I guess we'll talk about next time because I'm really
yes.
excited about this Laco Bulo and the standard. Just so everybody knows, I'm going to be putting up oh, sorry, just so that everybody knows, I'll be putting up your press release that you had done in the description, and
Yes.
I'll be sharing that as well for everybody on the Twitter. The LinkedIn, so you guys can go and find this everywhere. We'll be sharing this everywhere. I have two specific questions for you today, if you don't mind me asking you. Concerning uh, either or all your projects, like what are the biggest challenges you anticipate facing as you bring your mine into production, and how do you plan to mitigate these challenges?
Challenges. Oh my God, why are you asking me about challenges? I'm joking. That's fair. Let's talk about challenges. I mean, there's
Okay.
obviously mining is a challenging sector, and
Yes.
so strategic metals, and by strategic I mean the lithiums, the graphites, the manganese, all these materials that are going into these electric vehicles
Yes.
and green technologies are, some of them are called minor metals because they're produced as byproducts,
Mm.
and but for the most part they are strategic, and some are really critical, and so there are naturally challenges in processing them, and I will go um, to various points. So when you look at the technical challenges, I'll start with some of the technical things that we need to do. So the first step, as we discuss, is the resource, right? So
Yes.
in the case of Lac au Bouillot, it's very similar to Lac des Îles in the
Mm.
sense that you have these zones of mineralization,
Okay.
which are like anywhere from 5 to 10, 15 meters wide, with relatively high grade. And they go into foldings and they change directions. And so it is a little bit of a challenge to
Okay.
find and define the resource. What we are hopeful of is that Lac des Îles, as per the NI 43101 report that actually Northern Graphite put out,
Okay.
shows that it's, how ultimately what they mined, and what they mined, and that was fairly structural, fairly I'd say complex,
Okay.
and so, and we have something similar because we right there, we, a couple meters away,
Yeah, absolutely.
so it's not it's not that far, and we likely have um the extension of that mine on our site, and that's what we're working towards to prove,
Well,
right.
if
um
I'm sorry
Go
not to
ahead.
interrupt you, but if I remember, if I recall, I mean, even to get onto your site, I mean, it was the you had to go through the actual gates that were for the Emirates,
That's right. So the Emery's
right off the road.
gates, yeah, so they are on our claims, right? So we have
Uh,
all these claims, and there is a road that goes
yeah.
to their site, and that road is in our claims. So that basically shows how close we are. So the historical pit is perhaps kilometer away or so,
Yeah, not
or two
far.
kilometers. It's not far, and
No.
the closest zone is just a couple of hundreds of meters away. It's zone one, then we have other zones. So we really, anyways, you can go to our website. Your listeners can go to our website, and they can see a picture of
Absolutely.
our claims and where their mine is, and is all in the same picture.
Yeah,
It's
and just for
very
the
close.
listeners out there, I remember that you're so close to like towns, you're close to the roads, the infrastructure is all in place. I mean, you're next to like big towns. I don't remember the big one that was not too far away from you.
Yes, it's
It was
Mont-Laurier.
yeah, Mont-Laurier. I mean, very well known. I mean, actually, I went there about a month ago with my friend because he has a place up there. Very beautiful
Yes.
area. I mean, accessible. Lots of trucks on those highways. So, I mean, look, and the electricity, you have everything that you need. I
It's
mean,
it's it's
not
right
many
there.
challenges.
No, not
Oh,
not in terms of not in terms of infrastructure.
oh no.
Absolutely not. That would not be a challenge at all. You know, we have power lines going across
Yeah,
our
it's
property. There's
great.
enough water in the area
Yeah.
as
Oh God,
well.
yeah. There's lakes everywhere.
So
There's yeah.
that definitely will not be a challenge.
Well,
So
does
once, go ahead.
no, no, no. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
No,
Once,
no.
no, no. Once.
Once we define a resource,
Yeah.
that will
Oh,
be, and we looking forward to do this year.
yeah.
That will be one less challenge for us.
Oh,
And
amazing.
we really looking forward to that. Hopefully by December we might even be able to put a resource estimation out, the NI 43-1 report. So
Wow.
that is one, and then when you talk about strategic metals, usually you'll see that a lot of companies, even the lithium companies as well, they put information about a pilot plant, their pilot plant, their
Yes. Yes.
processing. And
Yes.
you see that you're less likely to see that with gold, for instance, because it's well known.
Yeah.
So for graphite, it's probably one of the simplest. So we will do a flotation step, beneficiation, physical, beneficiation step. Um, and which is flotation, and that will produce a product which is sellable, which is usually more than 95%.
Oh,
Historically, there was some work done on the material, in our property, and they achieved with very preliminary tests about 96%, and we think we
oh,
should be able to get that or even better with
wow.
just the flotation stage. I don't think the metallurgy, as far as the initial stage, will be challenge, at all. So we should be able to have that product which is sellable.
Wow.
However, once you go in the from away from that step or go to the next stage, you have to produce a highly pure anode material,
Hmm.
and that will be a challenge
Okay.
for various reasons. So the first reason is that China controls that. They know how to do it. They have the technology. They do it competitively. They do it cheaper. And so there will be a learning curve, not just for Graphano, but for all the other companies out there that are claiming that they are going to produce a graphite anode material.
Oh, I see. I see.
So in our case, we would like, hopefully, to be able to partner with a company that already has that experience.
I see.
Now,
Yes.
the challenge also comes in because, as some of your listeners might have noticed, the Canadian government do not want mining companies to be collaborating or to receive investment from Chinese companies.
Yes.
So a couple months ago now, I think, the government told certain companies lithium companies that have received investments from the Chinese to basically give those funds back, and
Yes.
because they were not happy with that investment. And I think it will be likely similar for all other strategic metals, including graphite as well. So bringing Chinese investment or Chinese partnerships will be difficult.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
But fortunately, graphite it is also produced in other parts of Asia, like India and so forth. And we have been approached by companies in those countries as well. So
Oh,
there is a possibility of partnering with non-Chinese, but that is definitely a challenge that ourselves and our peers will face if they decide to go downstream and produce this high pure advanced material that goes to electric vehicles. So
yeah.
that's something to pay attention to.
That's so interesting because yeah, that is very interesting to hear because it's true with all the sectors. China is like the lead in that, and it looks like we're gonna have to adapt, and that's just like the way it goes. And and that is basically leads me up to the next question, which is really down into where you were heading off. So basically, how do you envision your company contributing to the broader graphite basically industry in the development of the sustainable technologies that is relied on for this critical mineral. So basically, how do we envision it? What with all the things that you're saying, like what are we looking at here, basically?
Right. So there is great demand. Benchmark um, put out an estimate for demand of graphite, and you know, and it's most companies, consulting companies that do those forecasts, they're looking at demand to increase 4 times compared to what was in 2020, for instance.
Yes.
And so this benchmark report, for instance, they were saying that demand for anode material last year increased 46%,
Wow.
while the production of flake graphite was only about 14%. So
Oh
the
my God.
demand is growing higher, faster than production. So there is need for many, many um, mines, graphite mines.
And we have
And
one that's going out soon. So wow.
exactly.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay.
So most of the production right now is coming from Africa, and there are various projects in Quebec. But I think what we will bring, which is unique, and you actually alluded to that earlier, is our project is close to infrastructure. So compared to other projects that are perhaps more advanced than ours,
Yes.
and we are in an area that has produced graphite before. We have a pit right
Yep.
there, and we are
Yep.
close to the only producer in North America.
Yep.
So we are very confident that we will be able to define a resource. So the way we want to do this, we don't want to be drilling forever, and we
No.
could. So what we want to do is to be able to define perhaps a relatively small resource initially,
Okay.
and target relatively small production relative to the world production anyways,
Okay.
perhaps something
Yes.
like 15 or 20,000 tons per year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
And
still
then
wow.
supply the immediate market here in North America. And that is, I think, more realistic, because if you think about how many electric vehicles were produced in Canada
Yes.
last year, none. Okay, so they're not being produced yet. So there are some
Wow.
hybrids that are produced in Canada, probably about 9,000 per year or something like that. So
Crazy.
just for your listeners to understand, Canada, it's a producer. It's probably ranked number 12 in the world for vehicles, passenger vehicles, that is, and it produces about 2 million vehicles,
Oh, it's nothing.
and none of it is electric yet.
Well,
So what we're trying to do is to be able to develop our project as soon as possible,
yes.
and be able to have enough material that can, be able to supply, uh, you know,
North
to
American
the North
needs.
American needs,
Wow.
immediately Canadian needs.
Yes.
There are battery companies, battery makers that have made commitments to come to Canada. And there are companies that will have to come to Canada to help us out with production of these highly advanced anode materials that goes into these batteries for electric vehicles.
Wow.
So
That is
starting small rather than trying to do a multi-billion-dollar project, which will have much higher financing challenges and risk. What we want to do is find a resource, advance that, be able to produce anode materials, and supply that timely to battery makers that are setting up shop in Canada, so that they can
absolutely.
supply to the Canadian and the American.
Yeah, it brings in cash, brings in revenue, and at the same time, nothing stops you from, continuing to look for more.
That's right. That's right. So
Very
that is
smart.
really the strategy that
I
we're
like it.
looking for. And I hope the market will understand that. So we only been listed for a year and a half. So we are really
Oh,
new. one of our challenges has been to have our name out there and explain our story. So we appreciate you, Albert, for
Oh, no, I
inviting
love your
us
story.
and allow us to tell our story.
Oh, I love your story. And and like you said, it's been a year and you guys are moving pretty fast. Like I have to admit, like I've been part of what I do is I keep on looking at companies and companies and companies, right? And then some, they're just, let's just
Same
leave it at
place.
that. Whereas they look at you and what you said in our last interview, look, you've done it all. I mean, there's not one thing that you have not done. You've done it all. Very aggressive in a very good way. And you're checking off everything. And so, a lot of respect, that's for sure. And I'm very excited about your
Thank you.
company and the direction it's going. Now, because I want to leave stuff for other interviews. We'll end. I do honestly. I would like to leave a lot of stuff for more interviews.
Yeah.
Just to end off, basically, what can you tell the viewers or potential investors? What's the next steps, basically?
Right. So we last week started the spring program. So we back at the Lac Oblio and Standard, and we're looking to do more drilling to see expansion to the areas of mineralized areas that we found during drilling.
Okay.
And we're also going to do some infill drilling, and that will help us to define a resource. So that probably is going to be the most important event that your listeners should be looking for, is this resource, to actually tell the world and that we have a resource of sorts, NI 43-101 compliant resource, and we also going to do some metallurgical work, just really to show that it's possible to float these materials and offer more information about flake graphite and how it can be used for for the EV sector.
All
So
right.
that is what that's what comes next. So it's quite exciting.
That is exciting. And you know what? I'll end it off there. And I want the viewers to know that at the end of this interview, I'm going to be attaching our first interview together, where you do like take so much time and you give us so much knowledge on the different type of like the flake graphite and everything. Like with such an amazing conversation, and that people can see like everything that you said. It's just been dead on. I mean, you've been working really hard. So I'd like to thank you for being on the show, and I'd love to be able to do a follow-up interview with you actually very soon, just to talk about the different questions that we may have, and
Sure,
and where we're doing like updates and stuff like that.
sure. We
All
look
right.
forward.
Well, thank you very much. So everybody, Dr. Luisa Moreno, thank you so much for Graphano Energy, and I'll be putting up the links. Look in the description for the newest press release, and on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Albert. Bye-bye.
Between Plays, it's the journey and what you do between where you are and where you want to be. Research, prepare.
Disclaimer: Betweenplays has a contract with said company in this video at the time of recording. Betweenplays only takes contracts with companies we believe have an opportunity to deliver a product or service based on our own research. That being said, always do your due diligence. Seek professional financial analyst when investing. This video is for entertainment, educational, informative purposes. See description for more information.
Between Plays, bridging the gap between companies and investors.